going to read Two Bobbies. This is based on a true story of Hurricane Katrina and about two unlikely friends and their survival. Two Bobbies. The city of New Orleans on the mighty Mississippi is a place many people and pets call home. Jamming with jazz and dressing up fancy for Mardi Gras, it bustles with life day and night. But on August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina bore down on the city and everyone who lived there, including a wisp of a cat and one puppy. Winds roared to 110 miles an hour and rain poured hard and fast. Strong winds pushed walls of water from the Gulf of Mexico into Lake Pontchartrain. Some of the levees holding back the lake gave way. Water poured into the city deeper and deeper, and people who had stayed through the storm were finally forced to leave their homes. They had to say goodbye to everything they loved. Many were told they could not take their pets. Bobby and Bobcat were left behind. Bobby had been tethered with a length of chain, and Bobcat stayed by his side. Together, in the silent heat, they waited for help to come. After the storm, volunteers from across the country came to New Orleans to lend a hand. They brought food and water. They rescued people stranded on the roofs of their homes, and they rescued animals. But with so much damage and confusion, the two Bobbies were not rescued. Their food and water gone, Bobby finally broke free. She dragged along the broken chain with Bobcat close beside her. In the early days after the hurricane, the two Bobbies tried to make their way around oily water-littered streets. After the waters receded, they traveled the buckled streets with no place to call home. Month after month passed as Bobby and Bobcat wandered the devastated city. Their days and nights were filled with danger. Packs of hungry, homeless dogs roamed the streets, fighting smaller animals for food. Where Bobby and Bobcat chased away from any scraps they might have found. With little food to eat or clean water to drink, Bobby's ribs began to show. Bobcat's brown sugar markings started to fade to a dull white. One day in January, 4 long months later, Bobby and Bobcat strayed onto a job site. A construction crew hammered and sawed, fixing up a motel damaged by the hurricane. A worker's dog rushed over to play with Bobby. The dog's owner, Rich, noticed Bobcat too. He saw how thin the two strays were and began feeding them. He trimmed Bobby's chain, leaving just enough to jingle on the ground, because Bobcat liked to follow it. But every time Rich tried to touch Bobcat, Bobby growled. After a week of caring for the two Bobbies, Rich got some bad news when his boss came to the job site. He had given permission for one dog, but not two dogs and a cat. He said Bobby and Bobcat had to go. Rich was determined to take them to a safe place, but Bobby still growled whenever Rich got too near Bobcat. She would not let him pick him up, or even touch her. So Rich rattled a bowl full of kibbles. Bobby followed the food to Rich's van, and Bobcat followed Bobby. Rich drove them to a temporary shelter that Best Friends Animal Society had set up in Celebration Station, a former video game arcade in New Orleans. The shelter was completely filled with homeless dogs and cats, but a volunteer welcomed them in, even naming them Bobby and Bobcat for their bobbled tails. They were placed in separate rooms. night long, Bobby howled and barked, and Bobcat paced back and forth. No one could sleep with Bobby making such a ruckus. So volunteers made a large pen for her and put Bobcat in his small carrier, inside Bobby's new cage. Bobby lay in front of Bobcat and whimpered. The volunteers opened the small cage to see what would happen. The two Bobbies touched noses, together again at last. For the next few minutes, the volunteers studied Bobby and Bobcat. They noticed how Bobcat stayed close to Bobby. They saw how he walked with his neck stuck out and how he carefully lifted his front paws, placing them down as if he were unsure of what he might step on. Someone waved a hand in front of Bobcat's face. Bobcat didn't jump back. Another volunteer waved her hand. Bobcat didn't even blink. Everyone was stunned. Bobcat was blind. All that time on their own, Bobby had been Bobcat's seeing eye dog. The volunteers and even an ace pet detective searched for their family with no success. 1 month later, Celebration Station closed its doors, but Bobby and Bobcat still did not have a home. There was only one thing left to try. The two Bobbies made a television appearance on CNN's Anderson Cooper 360. The very next day, the best friends volunteers left New Orleans. One of them drove Bobby and Bobcat to the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Utah, many miles away, where they would stay until a new family could be found. They were on their way west when the news came in. Hundreds of people wanted to adopt them. It would take a very special family to adopt them together. The volunteers made a list and invited everyone on it to come and meet the two Bobbies. Only Melinda and her Boston Terrier, Gus Gus, made the long trip to Utah. That night, Bobby and Bobcat had a sleepover with Melinda and Gus Gus in one of the cottages on the sanctuary grounds. Would the two Bobbies choose Melinda? The next morning, everyone knew the answer. Bobby and Bobcat were stuck to Melinda like Velcro. They also liked Gus Gus, and he liked them. Finally, Bobby and Bobcat had found their new family. Now they live with Melinda, Gus Gus, and Amelia on a ranch in southern Oregon. Bobcat has a window seat to sit in. He likes to play with a robot vacuum cleaner. He turns it on all by himself. Bobby helps with the ranch chores. She goes along on horse rides. On hot days, she lounges in the frog and fairy pond. At the end of every day, Bobby and Bobcat snuggle up together. They have toys and treats and lots of new friends, even a camel. Best of all, they still have each other. The end. I love this story because it's about two friends that overcame huge obstacles, a hurricane, no food, no water, and they did it because they had each other. This is a little blip at the end of the book, and here's a picture of the real Bobby and Bobcat. I'm just going to read this to you. It says, after the storm, like thousands of others, the two Bobbies lost their family and everything dear to them when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. After they came to live with Melinda and Gus Gus, their veterinarian discovered debris and grit deep inside Bobcat's ear canals. His right eardrum was broken. Did Bobby snatch Bobcat from the dirty floodwaters that had filled New Orleans? No one will ever know, but it is very likely that a blind cat like Bobcat would not have made it without Bobby's protection. In turn, Bobcat's friendship may have made Bobby stronger and given her a reason to go on. Bobby and Bobcat survived Hurricane Katrina. They did it by lending each other a paw. I hope you enjoyed the two Bobbies, and I'll see you next time. Keep reading.